So I finally finished the platinum yesterday for God of War, and it has made me think of a topic that I want to discuss right now. And no, it's not achievements versus trophies and which one is better, when clearly everybody knows achievements are far superior, but I digress. The topic that I want to talk about today is exclusives and the importance of exclusives to a brand. I know, pretty interesting topic. People are talking about it day in and day out on forums and on Twitter, and I wanted to give my 2 cents on it. And if Microsoft still views exclusives as an important part of their portfolio, because I see people questioning that. And I already can hear you guys typing your comments. Oh my god, Rand's gonna downplay exclusives because Xbox doesn't have any, right? I know all that stuff, but maybe you should listen to the video and what I have to say before commenting. But hey, if you want to leave a like and hit the subscribe button before all that, then please do. But let's get into the video, shall we? What's going on, guys? Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. And I know, I'm sorry, it's been about 3 days since my last video. I took a break from YouTube, recharged the batteries, played some games, and it's back on the grind now. Now, this is a subject I've wanted to talk about for a while, exclusives, right? And if they are truly that important as people say they are, as people that use it on lists of why you should get a PlayStation versus an Xbox versus a Switch. We all have seen those lists, right? But are those people correct? Are exclusives as important as everybody says they are? And I feel, to get a proper understanding of that, you have to reflect on your gaming history to kind of see what your worldview is on this subject. So I'm going to give you a little taste of what my gaming history's been about. And this will be good because I know I picked up a lot of subscribers recently and they may not know my gaming history. So I got a Nintendo. I got an NES, which my parents bought for me because obviously I was a young kid, didn't have any money of my own. And then I got a Sega Genesis. Same reason, system I wanted, didn't have any money, didn't have a job, so my parents bought it for me. Now, eventually, the next generation after that, the N64 PlayStation 1 era, I had my first job and I had my own money. So finally, the choice was presented to me. Rand, what system are you going to buy? And I bought a PlayStation 1 over an N64. And I bought a PlayStation 1 because the games that were exclusive to that console appealed more to me than the stuff on the 64. I really wanted to play the Final Fantasies and stuff on the PlayStation, whereas the Zeldas and the Marios didn't interest me, so I didn't bother. So even at a young age, during high school, I knew the importance of exclusives in a purchasing decision between 2 consoles. And I know there are some of you listening to this video that probably had a similar situation, but chose the opposite, chose the N64 because the Zeldas and Marios were important to you, and that is why you bought it. So this might already kind of give you a sense of where I'm going with this topic. But next up is the PlayStation 2. And oh man, I was a huge PlayStation guy. I bought a PlayStation 2 because I wanted to play games like Metal Gear Solid, Devil May Cry, Silent Hill, Final Fantasy, Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, San Andreas, all those big third-party exclusive games that we don't see anymore. That's why I got a PlayStation. And that may be a surprise to a lot of you out there because I am an Xbox guy. My channel is kind of dedicated to Xbox to a certain degree, although I play games on all consoles and talk about them. I do more Xbox stuff than any other console. And I know some of you might be like, oh, really? Like, I always thought Rand was an Xbox dude, but that wasn't always the case. I kind of went where the games were. And the games were definitely on the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. However, I did buy a GameCube. And I did buy an OG Xbox. And I bought a GameCube because Resident Evil 4 was going to be exclusive to GameCube. You guys might remember this situation. Capcom and Nintendo, they had a handshake agreement, and Resident Evil was going to be exclusive to the GameCube. And I was a huge Resident Evil fan at the time, so I needed to have that system. And this was, of course, before the rumors started leaking that it was going to come to PlayStation 2 eventually. So I had to buy a GameCube, and I bought a GameCube because of Resident Evil 4. And I played some other games on there like Metroid Prime, but it was a single game. Granted, it helped that the system was also $100 at the time, but still. And the same thing with the OG Xbox. I bought the OG Xbox because of Halo 2, because of that marketing. It was everywhere. It made it seem like this was the biggest event in the history of gaming, and I would be missing out if I didn't experience the thing they were talking about. So I picked up original Xbox for Halo 2, played the original Halo, and because of that, started playing Knights of the Republic and the other games on the system. So as you can tell, in my purchasing history, I've always valued the exclusive games that you can only find on that console. And it still kind of continues to this day. The 360 I bought originally on the promise that Halo 2 would play better on it, but I was always waiting for the Sony to debut the PlayStation 3 and wow me with the new console and some great exclusives to make me be like, all right, the 360 was fun, but here comes the real stuff. But it didn't happen. The PlayStation 3 was grossly overpriced. The executives were making comments like, you need to get a second job to afford this system. Our fans would buy the system if it came with no games. So all that made me think, I don't want to get this system. And then, of course, the games happened, and none of them, for the first couple years, were any good. And I felt like I had made the right choice, because the 360 was getting killer exclusives, like the Halo games, as well as Gears of War, as well as third-party exclusives, like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Graw, you had Saints Row, you had BioShock. So I felt as I made the right choice because all those exclusive experiences were only available on the 360. And when the switch over to this gen happened, I felt the exclusives were stronger in the beginning on Xbox One versus PlayStation. That's always up to subjective experiences. But now I do have a PlayStation. Now I do own a Switch, mainly because I'm interested in the exclusive experiences I can't get on Xbox. I own about 40 PlayStation exclusives and about 4 games on the Switch. So as you guys can tell, I feel exclusives are a reason to own a system, and they're important. Hell, it even goes all the way back to why I watch E3. I watch E3 not because I want to see the third-party games. Sure, I do, but the main reason I watch Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo is because I want to see the games they are specifically making for their hardware. That's why I watch every single year. That's why everybody watches. They want to see the new hotness from the console manufacturers. Because, quite frankly, as good as the third-party games are, I've really enjoyed Far Cry 5, the Red Deads, the BioShocks, they're basically on every system. And I've talked recently about how I feel Xbox's games are mediocre, and I've talked about how, hey, 2017 was a bad year for Xbox. And when I say that, I'm literally talking about the exclusive games, and I'm not including any of the third-party games I did play, which is a ton. Exclusives matter to me. I think this should be pretty apparent from the story I just told about how my history has kind of impacted my worldview about exclusives. I feel they're incredibly important. But here's where I feel people don't take the time to stop and smell the roses, so to speak. Even though I can see that my own history has clouded my perception of how exclusives are important, I understand that not everyone buys a system for the reasons that I do. But not everybody can see that. Everybody thinks, well, I bought a system for this game, therefore everybody else must be buying the system for this game. If you don't buy God of War on the PlayStation and don't play it, you're not a gamer. I've seen that stuff thrown around, and it makes me wonder and think, like, is that the case? If you don't buy God of War, if you don't play these exclusives, are you a gamer? Are the exclusives that important? Because that is the crux of the argument. Yes, in my personal history, I've chosen systems based on the exclusives. So to me, they're 100% important. But what about the kid who bought a PlayStation or an Xbox to play Fortnite with his friends, who doesn't know what Halo is or what Gears is, who doesn't know what Zelda is, who doesn't know what God of War is. Is it important to him? Of course not. But if you say that to people, they get all up in arms. They'd be like, oh, exclusives are the most important thing. But yet the data shows otherwise. And we'll take 3 examples, one from each of the consoles. We'll take Sea of Thieves for Xbox. Now, we know that Microsoft said 2 million people played it in the first week, and it's been, what has it been, about a month now? So you know what? Let's give them, for the sake of the argument, another 2 million players. Let's say they're at 4. 4 million people have played Sea of Thieves. And let's just round up to Xbox and say their total hardware is at 40 million. Now, simple subtraction, God, if I could talk, we'll say that 36 million people didn't care about Sea of Thieves whatsoever. That's not a very good number, right? People have lambasted Horizon Zero Dawn for similar numbers, right? All the time on social media. But let's take God of War, a game, because Sea of Thieves is a controversial game. People love it. People hate it. The Metacritic isn't very good, right? Maybe that's the reason why 36 million people didn't play Sea of Thieves. So let's take a masterpiece that the gaming media has declared the second coming of exclusives, and that's God of War. It's got a 94 on Metacritic. I love the game. I gave it a 10 out of 10. And even still, even if you take God of War and let's just use Michael Pachter's prediction and said he thinks low end 10 million sales for God of War, 12 million or 20 million as the high end. Let's give Pachter the benefit of the doubt, and we'll go with the high end, the 20 million sales of God of War, which would be huge, monstrous. But then also, there's 80 million PlayStations, which means 60 million people don't care about God of War. That's a pretty high number. But let's look at the Switch. Now, when it launched, Legend of Zelda had like a 1-to-1 attach ratio, basically implying that the people who were buying the Switch loved Zelda, loved the exclusives, valued it so much that they were buying it with their system. Nintendo just announced roughly 18 million Switches sold, but Zelda doesn't have a 1-to-1 attach ratio anymore. Zelda's about around 10 million, so there's about 8 million people that don't care about Zelda. The point is as time goes on, and as we get away from the hardcore buying the consoles, the exclusives become less and less important to people as they buy it late in the generation. Zelda proves that example, right? The exclusives, this could be a topic for another video, but there is an argument to be made about when exclusives are most impactful to a system. Is it in the beginning, the middle, or at the end? But the idea is they're still impactful to a differing degrees. So while the hardcore, people like me, people who buy these systems day one, who probably have a similar gaming history that impacts how they view exclusives, they'll go and say exclusives are the only thing that matters. Third party is just that. They're just there. But the exclusives are the reason. And from their perspective, they're 100% right. But it's when you apply your reasoning, your judgment, your values onto other people is where I get a little... it just doesn't ring true. Because we know people buying the system now aren't buying it for the exclusives. They're buying it because their friends are playing Fortnite on it. Or they don't have any money and their parents just bought them the cheapest system. People need to realize that other people in this world buy things that interest them for other reasons. And while it may be true for me and you that exclusives are that reason, somebody else might be buying a system to play with their friends in Call of Duty and have no interest in any of those other things. Are you to say that those people are wrong? I won't say it, because everybody buys and watches things and plays games for their own personal enjoyment and their own personal reasons. It's just that I recognize that. So for me, exclusives are the most important thing about a video game console. It's just that I recognize that other people can have different opinions on that. But let's take it to Xbox, shall we? Because I've seen this talked about how Xbox's first party isn't important, that Microsoft knows it's not important, and I have a different opinion on that. I think, and Microsoft would agree with me on this, that their first party offerings are important simply by the virtue of them making those games. That's right. The fact that Microsoft makes first party games tells you all you need to know about their importance. If they weren't important, they wouldn't make them. Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, they don't run charities, guys. They don't make games simply to make us happy. Sure, that's maybe what they will say, but like, we made this game so our fan base is happy, but they made the game to make money out of it, to get people engaged with it, to spend money on the microtransactions, for their friends to tell their friends to pick up the system. It's all about money at the end of the day. And by virtue of the fact that Microsoft is making the exclusives should tell you how important it is. Now, we can argue to death about the quality of those exclusives, which could be a video for a different day, but the exclusives are being made. They're investing money in them to make them, right? And honestly, Microsoft has made a commitment, and they've actually started a new service that they expect people will buy into just based off of their exclusive. It's called Xbox Game Pass. You can sign up for $10 a month. You get all the first-party games for free. They've talked about expanding it out to 2 billion people. And the only way to do that is by offering quality exclusives. Exclusives, period. Right? So Microsoft's own Game Pass service and their plans for the future tells you all you need to know about how they view their own exclusives. It's incredibly important, and don't let anybody tell you that it's not. But it is what it is. And honestly, when I think back about what I view each console as, what has defined a console for me, it's always been the exclusives. The original Xbox is defined by Halo. The 360 is defined by Halo and Gears of War. The PS2 is defined by Metal Gear and Grand Theft Auto. For me, the exclusives have always defined the console. But with the Xbox One, it's a little different story, because I don't think they've had that monstrosity of a exclusive just yet. In fact, I would argue that what has defined Xbox One this generation is backwards compatibility. That's not to say that a game won't come later in the gen that defines the system, but for me personally, that's what I think has defined Xbox this generation. Exclusives are important to me, 100%. I hope I prove that to you through this video. I hope I don't get any dumb comments in my comments section. But sometimes you got to take a step back and realize that other people have different likes and dislikes than you. And while you can scream to the heavens about God of War and how amazing it is, somebody else may not feel the same. And in fact, more than likely, more people are going to side with the fact that exclusives aren't important than are. Simply looking at the data for each of these games as they're sold. But it is what it is. And I hope you enjoyed this video, because I know it's getting a little bit long. I'm not even sure how long this has been going on for, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. And yeah, leave a comment below about what you think about the exclusive situation. Is it as important as you think it is? And give me a reason why, and I'll make sure to check it out. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.